thanks all for coming. We had no idea how many people would actually be able to come today, so thank you all for being here. Hopefully this will just be kind of an informal discussion. You'll get a little picture into what it's like when Frank and I are in the store together, alone.
Little improv theater.
Yeah, little improv.
I know who you are?
The who?
Okay.
Who knows who I am? Well, if you don't know who I am, I'm Eileen Bobeck. I'm the owner of Rebel Heart Books in Jacksonville. And actually, I just have to share with everybody one of the best things that just happened today. Just to give you an idea, if you haven't been into the store before, kind of what it's like. A group of people walk past, and the doors are open to the outside. So you can hear, now I'm going to ruin it, because we can hear what you say a lot of times when you walk past. So this group of people was walking past today and pointing out different buildings in Jacksonville, and one of the women in the group said, "And this is the bookstore that scares some of us."
Really?
And I was like, "That's fantastic. I love it." And it means I've made it. And anyway, so I'm the owner of the bookstore, and this is Frank DeLuca, and please don't look him up unless you actually Google this, because the first thing that will pop up is American Mobster. And I kid you not, there's another Frank DeLuca. Yes, and he has not reformed himself into talking about the Enneagram. This is Frank. And, this is the fun part about, being in a bookstore. You get to hear about people's lives all day and where they came from, and everybody's got a story that ended up here or came from here. And Frank's a doctor, right? He's the other kind of doctor, the PhD, right? And which my father-in-law used to say to my husband was like the real doctor.
Oh, yes. I feel that.
Yes, right? And just long time marriage and family therapist and consultant to like very big name, organizations like Kaiser and Cedar Sinai, and has been doing this, really helping people since 1976. Is that right? Right? And working with the Enneagram for a long time. And this is the first time we've ever done anything like this. Oh. And, we're doing, not just me. This is the first time I've ever done anything quite like this. And I wanted to do it because of Frank and who he is and the energy he brings to the town, along with Ken, like two of the kindest people I've met. And, would like to, in my most expansive state, would like to emulate. And so, and just to give people an idea, he started talking about this book,
5 years ago.
5 years ago. So just to give you an idea how long it takes for an idea to really kind of, somebody who's been writing and produces a book has worked really hard and has done it for quite a while. So I feel like that's something to celebrate. And also, he couldn't have known how timely this book would end up being. And that's the beauty of writing, is hopefully you see the wave and catch it before anybody sees it from the shore. And he did that. So it's wonderfully timed, and I'm looking forward to talking.
Me too. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I to have Eileen offer to do this kind of conversation and not just me doing an author talk, it means so much to me, because everything of value that I know comes out of relationship. And your being here, I know almost all of you, which is remarkable, and this event comes out of our relationship. Mm-hmm. It just seemed like a natural thing. So that's what I really appreciate. And you're willing to have a relationship with all kinds of people in your store, all of us in Jacksonville.
Yeah.
So thank you. Let me mention there's a microphone here, and we are recording this video. I've been recording my talks so that they can go on my website. So that's why we have this here, and you won't be in it. So I just want to alert you to that so you understand what this is about. So I'm going to have you lead the way.
Well, what I was telling Frank, so I've done the Enneagram before, like a long time ago, and one of the things I really appreciate about your book is that actually, because I get really impatient with taking tests of any kind, especially personality tests, because it's easy to kind of be like, no, that's not me, which means it's probably you, right? What I really appreciated about the book, even from the very beginning, is its focus towards why the Enneagram? Like, why do you even want to? There's so many different tools to relate to people. There's so many different tools to try to improve your relationships, improve connection. So one of my, you've been working with it a long time. Why did that even become a tool that you wanted to use or look into?
Mm-hmm. Thanks. To me, it's one of the most efficient tools I ever found for what I've been trying to do in working with people through the years as a consultant, a therapist, personal growth facilitator, seminar leader, and these types of things. Especially, I think, as a therapist, it becomes, there's a couple things that I learned through doing that. And part of the charge of it is to help reduce conflict and help increase understanding and communication. So I look for things that will help with that. And yes, I know all the tools that are available in Western psychology and therapists use, and it's all very good, and I've used that. But the Enneagram comes in and it's like, this really helps, because it helps I think you have, for a good relationship, you have to understand yourself a little better and know how other people see you, and to see that what you bring to the relationship is part of how it's going to go. So that's important. The other is to try to understand somebody else, and that they have a different point of view and different needs and different desires and a different take on things. And the Enneagram is brilliant in helping you understand that people really live in a different universe than you do. I mean, it's astounding when you understand this thing. It's like, really? You think that? That's normal for you? And in fact, as a therapist for the years, there were a couple of questions that were pretty common, either first session or some sessions in. And one was, is this normal? Am I the only one who thinks this way, who feels this way? So a lot of those conversations with people was about kind of normalizing human behavior. Now, I didn't work with the extremes of people who were psychotic or bipolar, in the sense that there are certain other treatments you might do. But generally, with what we call normal neurotics, which I will call us, we all have our quirkiness, but we basically get through life and our relationships pretty well. But the Enneagram, it was such a condensed place to get self-awareness, awareness of other, how to communicate better, how to see the unification between you while seeing the differences, which is not an easy thing. And the Enneagram is a brilliant tool for understanding that with all this diversity and difference that we all have, there's some common ground that we have. And to be able to touch into that, you begin to look at others not as some other person, but as, you're actually kind of like me, but you look really different, you talk different, but I think you may want the same things I do. And to me, it kind of came down to, to feel safe, to feel like you can be who you are or say what you want, especially with someone close to you, and not have defenses go up or something bad to happen. And I think also to be seen and not judged, and to feel like someone gets you. I guess that's the word that really comes to me. Someone really gets you and sees the whole thing and is able to say, I love you, and I see all of this, and we can work on that behavior that you've got, but we can still work with all of this. And so the Enneagram was just one of the best tools that I found for condensing so much. Plus, it's wonderful psychology. It fits with the Western model of behavioral health and how to help people. It also has its roots in spirituality. And to say simply, meaning that we're all part of something larger. And the Enneagram is fundamentally that kind of tool to let us see that we're all part of some bigger story. We have our own story,
right,
but we have part of a bigger story.
One of the things that anybody who knows me really well, I'm a book tabber. So if anybody ever watched Seinfeld, so his book was tab worthy, and in terms of there's a lot of tabs in here. But one of the things that you said, just the idea that we all have different operating systems, that and that when we're all paying attention to different things. So one of the things that I've so I have anxiety. My daughter has anxiety. I don't know why. And I've talked to her about the idea of like having a satellite dish, and that when you have anxiety, you have a gigantic satellite dish, and you're just bringing in all sorts of data all the time.
You mean metaphorically a big satellite?
Yes, a big metaphorical satellite dish that you're just bringing in so much data, and it's hard to sift through. But I actually feel like thinking about the different types, everybody has a satellite dish. It's like what data are you pulling in? Like and why do you what you pay attention to is what you love, what's important to you, what makes you scared, that kind of thing. And you were talking about the ideas. Everybody does want to feel loved. Everybody wants to feel validated. Everybody wants to, and if you kind of operate from that, then and trying to actually, I was telling you before that it seems like with working with some kind of tool like this, or tools, any tool that helps you put distance between impulse and response is a good thing most of the time. I mean, obviously sometimes you have to make a decision really quickly, and so it seems like that's part of the goal as well, is to actually all right, you just got an impulse or something happened, somebody said something, and now you want to do this. It's like, wait a second. And so it creates some of that distance to give you like a little bit of observation of yourself in an interaction as well as the person.
Exactly. And the word observation is important because the Enneagram doesn't work, it doesn't come alive unless you have that capacity to step back and look and not just be in the reaction, but just see, oh, I am angry right now, instead of just being angry, or I am afraid. And it gives you a language, tool, and a lot of room. So then you have a choice. So that's a basic thing we try to get across in any personal growth, is how to be able to observe yourself. And a spiritual development is developing this observing self.
Well, and the idea that you just said there too, you have a choice. And
Yeah.
there's I can't remember who said this quote, this idea about you think you're really self-actualized and whatever until you go and you spend a week with your parents, kind of thing. Again, and it's like that kind of like the idea that you've developed over your lifetime as a child and then an adult a certain set of responses or a way of moving through the world, and it kind of works. And these kind of things of an Enneagram, for me anyway, because it's like I'm not going to necessarily remember all the types, really. And my oldest son read the first iteration of this book, and he said at the time that if you're going around typing people, then you're kind of missing the point. That it's really just more of what are the, this idea that you could actually be all of these things. And you're not necessarily one thing all the time, but that's probably what you lead with. Is that correct to say?
I start there, that it's fine just to see yourself in all of these types. And I know people are really anxious to type themselves oftentimes, because that's what we want to know. It's like a consumer thing. Just tell me the type, and I'm done, and then I can tell everybody what type I am, and at the next party I can say, yes, I'm a 6, So, so there's that side of the Enneagram. When you move into it, though, I think it only matters what type you are when it matters to know that. Because once you begin to know it, it's not an end. Some people think, once I know my type, I've done it, now I know. And my view is that no, once you know your type, you're going to start a whole process of discovery. So it's not an end, it really is quite an opening. And the opening is to discovery, to see things differently, to see yourself in ways you hadn't seen before. And it's layered and layered and layered and layered and layered and layered. And another layer, and it just seems to go on. And the Enneagram, interestingly enough, seems to have there's a wisdom in these teachings. Yeah. And I have found no end to what you can derive from it. And I'm working with the Enneagram of personality. There's lots of ways to look at the Enneagram as this phenomenal tool for understanding the world, really. But because my training and work has been one-on-one and relationships, I focus the book, and my focus with teaching is more on that. But my hope is that that portal, when you discover yourself, will lead you to a much bigger picture of reality.
Also, it's not, this was, you wrote about these different scenarios with people and like just in their relationships with people. It's not meant to judge another person or to actually be accusatory or to say you got to fix this. It's more, I mean, there was a lot of humor. I definitely feel like humor is just a higher form of coping, just in general.
Higher form of
coping.
Coping. Oh,
like
yes.
with a lot of different things. And so if you can, so when I was doing this, I told you this. I was going through the book with my daughter, and of course the focus was on me and my and my type. But we were going through, and there were certain statements that were made about the type I most identified with, and she would point at them and she would look at me like just saying that sounds a lot like you. But we were able to laugh about it,
Yeah.
and it actually and I think you can do those things. Sometimes they're harder with people you love, and sometimes they're easier with people you love. But it's not meant to be a form of going around judging people's operating systems. It's really more trying to understand. And one of the things you also said too is that some of these things are like really, you form these systems early on for whatever reason, like nature versus nurture, or both, which I think it's both. So you're coming into the world with the operating system you've got, and then what do you do now?
Right. What do you do now? That's
Yeah.
where the Enneagram takes you from
Yeah.
that point. When you go, what now? Enneagram says, I'll show you.
Yeah, where?
And it's beautiful. It really says, thank you for this map. I'm kind of lost without some guidance. And the Enneagram does, that's why discovering your point, when it becomes important, it will give you your starting place. And then it shows you how you can grow very specifically. And boy, is it accurate.
Yeah, there's another. Well, I don't know if it originated with her. There's another, but it makes me think of Anais Nin, that we don't see the world as it is. We see it as we
Right.
are, and I feel like that's very much it gives you an access point
Yeah.
into somebody
That's a
that
good
you
way to
might
say
not
it.
understand.
Yes.
And that you just really disagree with.
yeah.
And I should say, I want to acknowledge Nancy Bartos with these wonderful.
I know, she couldn't be here.
Yeah.
Nancy Bartos was my friend who was the artist who illustrated
Yes.
for this. And talk about the humor and humanness.
Yes.
That's what I saw in her art, and
Yeah.
she did such an incredible job of humanizing all of this, yeah.
And they're really helpful, actually.
Well, let's go through them.
Yeah, that would be great, because my daughter found them particularly helpful because she's very visual, so she's like, well, you didn't tell me there were,
Yeah.
there was
Yeah.
art. Now now I can access this, basically.
But here's the symbol itself, and it's Enneagram means a 9-pointed drawing or image. It's a geometric figure based on 9. There's 9 points at which those lines intersect the circle. There's a whole lot of understanding about this, but this is the symbol that came to us through the centuries. And it wasn't until the 1920s when a man named Gurdjieff brought this forward as an understanding of laws of the universe, and it moves ahead until the 1970s when it becomes more of an Enneagram of personality, which is what I work with today. So added to it then is the next layer of putting the types, the numbers around the Enneagram, and each type is at one point on the circle. You can kind of see that it's a circle, there's no hierarchy. All types are equal in this way, just a perspective, 9 different perspectives on the same thing. So we're going to start with the going through them just very quickly, and let's go to the next. I'll skip that later. Yes, okay. If you notice, you have a card, and this is Nancy. After doing this the first time, went home and did this cartoon.
No.
That's what she saw. That's how Nancy's mind works, But this card, it's kind of a silly exercise and a really good one. That to go through the types, I'm going to go 2 minutes each, and then have you quickly just get a flash for yourself. Do you relate to this for yourself in column 1? And is there someone that you are with or someone you want to focus on or anyone else that comes to mind? So there's you and them. It's usually kind of like that. It's me and them. You know how they are. So I'm going to go through, and you can give it a number of 0 through 3. 0 means I don't relate to this at all. Crazy. Number 1 means a little bit. I can kind of see that. Number 2, yeah, there's a few things there. Number 3, feels like it hit home. And you had described it that way.
You said this in a talk, so when you recognize yourself, it should hurt a little bit. Because I was reading through some of these and I was like, ugh. And it's like, well, then I know that's me. Yeah.
So if you feel a little sick to your stomach, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but you don't expect to find your type today, but I like to at least start you in the conversation. It's just a conversation starter. So I'm going to go through pretty quickly, go through the images. The images say a lot, and then I'll just say a few words, and then I'll give you a few seconds to put in column 1 what number you might see yourself, and think about either your partner who you're with, or a good friend, or someone that comes to mind. Some people have done this with themselves, their husband or wife, and they go home and compare scores. I haven't heard about the fights yet, but still. But you also begin to see, you do see things differently than I do, and this is how I see you. You see yourself. It's wonderful to get a conversation going. Okay, so here's the type 1. So type 1s, you can, this is such a great image, but kind of a disapproving look. Type 1s kind of focus on what's right and what's wrong. They tend to have a little bit more of a black and white kind of thinking. And with each type, there's a real gift, and then it kind of gets overdone. And that's why I put on your card, I call it the expansive side and the more contracted side. So the limited state, expanded. So in the limited state, 1 is focusing on what's wrong, can be complaining, very critical, judgmental. 1s tend to be, what people don't know, extremely critical of themselves. There's an inner critic that's just grinding. You didn't do that right. You could have said that better. Well, they should have known that better. It's that kind of language. So internal and external. So they can be, on the lower side, judgmental and dogmatic and obsessive and inflexible and critical and overly serious. However, in their more expansive state, and where you can develop as a 1, is to become, ones are quite ethical and reliable and just very idealistic. That's why I call this one, and one of the terms I give it is the idealist, because it's always imagining a better world. This room could be better if we just did this. Anything could be better in that moment, And then because of that sense, there's a gap between what could be and what is. There's a lot of room for resentment and anger and irritation. And usually you feel it in your body. It's kind of a body type, so you're going, And 1s don't often get angry openly, but inside it's like, that's just not right, And sometimes they feel if they say too much or do too much, you're going to make people angry, or they'll feel criticized. But the 1 says, but there really is a better way. That's the 1. Just put on your card, just quickly from that 0 through 3. About yourself, or if you happen to see that someone else might be that, or if you're going through it with one other, just say about them 0, 1, 2, 3. And this is just a quick intuitive hit. Okay. 2. 2s are often called what givers, helpers, nurturers, and the 2 focuses on other people quite instinctively, what people need, how to make people feel better, how to be an emotionally empathic and supportive person, how to help out, how to understand there's a need there and I'm there to serve that. You can see the great qualities of this. You can see in the image that 2, which is the person on the left there leaning in, 2s can kind of lean in a little too heavily on other people and say, you do need my help, don't you? And you really would be lost without me, wouldn't you? And I'm really here to help, aren't I? So it's kind of an assumption. Pride is the word that goes along with 2, meaning there's a pride in knowing what you need before you do. So a sense of self can come out of, I know how to serve others. The downside of it can be that a 2 can be then very possessive and manipulative, because each type is trying to get some need met. We all have a need to be seen and to be loved, and a 2 believes in the core belief, I must do for others, I must be generous with myself, I must be selfless in some way so that I will receive love in return. It can backfire. But you can tell when twos are really at their expansive state, they're some of the most caring people and insightful and generous and enthusiastic and very tuned in to other people and can be adaptable. So you want good twos in your life. All these types, what I say is you want a good two in your life. You want a good three in your life, So it pays off. So part of what I try to get across in the book is how you can relate to people. So you're going to help bring out their more expansive self. Okay. That's the two. On your card, 0 through 3 for yourself, if you have some relationship to it, and for someone else. And this is not a test, it's just a little conversation starter.
You'll all be revealed by the end.
Yes. Yeah. It can take years to find your type, is the truth of it. I've worked with people who, after years, even studying or teaching, may not know. And other people, it just kind of goes like that. And so, okay, we'll go on to type 3, the achiever. Type 3's focus is on achieving, getting things done, being industrious, productive, effective, knowing how to make a good presentation, knowing how the world works, because 3s very much work off of others in the world and say, I wonder what a successful person would be in this group. I'm going to become that successful person. What is the world's expectations of people who are really good at what they do? I'm going to be really good at what I do. And so they often are very high achieving people, and they know how to read the culture, whether it's a larger culture, a corporate culture, a nursery school culture. They just kind of know, and they know how to be effective. You can drop a 3 anywhere, and they will figure out how to make something work. You want good 3s in your life. Now, for a 3 personally, what happens through time is they're so focused on becoming successful. It doesn't mean just successful like corporate or something, successful in whatever that means. That image of success begins to overtake their sense of self. And so in a relationship, I focus on the relationship part in here, can be difficult because that 3 is so focused on being the person they feel they need to be for you and for others that they kind of lose a sense of what they really feel and who they really are. So the path for the 3 is to regain that sense of authentic self. So 3s in their best are confident and industrious and self-propelled and optimistic and efficient and practical and very inspiring. I get very inspired by really great 3s because it's like, wow, look at them go, And for 3s, when they begin to see another side, which is difficult for 3s because you don't want to look behind the mask. We all have a mask, but 3s really know how to put on a particular face. So they can become then overly competitive, narcissistic, too busy, deceptive, meaning they fall into self-deceit. They begin to lose what they really know and what they really feel because they just are performing. That's another word for the 3. And can be vain or superficial or pretentious. So once you begin to see this, you begin to watch this, but know there's a person in there just like you who is wanting love, attention, and to feel safe. And so you appreciate your 3s. We live kind of in a 3 culture. Okay, appearances, success, got to be that. So a lot of us who aren't 3s can feel very ineffective and demeaned because we're not those successful people. Okay, on your card, 0 through 3. Just working?
It's working for me.
Okay. I find that getting engaged early on really helps to connect with this material. That's why I'm asking you to do this. Number 4. Love this cartoon.
Yeah.
Isn't that a beautiful? What do you see from this, by the way, when you look at it? It's a very evocative image, I think. Anything comes to mind when you see it?
The most fabulous people.
The most fabulous people. Yes. Yes. I think. Anyone else?
Well, it's like sunny out there, but it's raining under her umbrella.
Yes. Yeah. It's kind of a self-contained emotional field, you might say. And 4s tend to live in their own emotional swirl, life. It could be sunny, it could be cloudy, and fours tend to focus on or tend towards the melancholy. And some of us might think, just cheer up. But a four says, why? It's so beautiful to feel things in life, to feel grief and loss and beautiful music and the soul, because they're really attuned to the soul of life. And the soul of life is not always a happy place. Again, overlay from our culture, be happy. And fours say, are you kidding? Because you're missing out on a lot. So fours are remarkable in their sensitivity to the emotional world and to their own subjectivity and to knowing for them what is true and authentic. And a four is not going to easily just go along with something because other people do it. So there's a sense of the individual is important. It's sometimes called the individualist. Individualists then can be very warm and compassionate, and they really are very attuned to their introspective self. They have I call the fours the deep divers in the emotional world. Any feeling is open to them. It's like, it's rich, it's wonderful. That's why we have great artists oftentimes who are fours. Mm-hmm. They know how to express the soul of things, and they get to that. They can be very expressive then and creative and very intuitive and passionate. Now, any type, when overdone and when this becomes something that is their only way, can be self-absorbed and withdrawn and moody and moralistic and overly dramatic and kind of elitist. So you can see both of that, all of that at the same time. So the growth for the four, like all of us, is to be able to observe this and have a choice sometimes. I've talked to fours who will say, the sadness and the loss is always front and center for me. So I have to work to kind of shift my attention to what's joyful about life. It doesn't come naturally right there. So that's part of the growth for us. Part of our growth in each type is to turn away from what comes most naturally to us. That's our growth, to just try something else. On your card, 0 through 3, on the type 4, the individualist, what do you see for yourself and for someone else? Okay. Type 5, I depicted here with books. Doesn't mean that all fives have books, but they, just like the fours, the deep divers in the emotional world, the fives are the deep divers in the intellectual world. They want to know. They want to figure things out. They often are experts in a certain field. They can be specialists. They kind of, their topic that they're interested in and their sense of wanting to know can supersede many other things in life. Are they good in relationships? Of course, but it's like, do we really have to do that? Because there's so much to know and so much to figure out in life, and this is a wonderful curiosity. So fives aren't always intellectual. I mean, you can be a five of do anything in life, but it's a sense of part of a sense of privacy about emotional life. The fours are right out there usually with emotions, and the fives say, not so fast. Those things inside are private to me. And they find a way to express a lot of things through words, through their creativity, but they can say a lot by not being necessarily openly dramatic or emotional as the fours can be. So fives can be very analytical and are, I find through knowing a lot of fives in life, very sensitive. They may not appear to be picking up on things, but it's a word for the five is the observer. They observe. Nothing goes past a five. They can be great writers because they're watching people as characters, you see. They can be objective, perceptive, very self-contained. I say they kind of live with their own emotional oxygen tank and kind of reduce their need to be needy of other people. That just doesn't work well for a five. They want to be a little more self-contained. And they're very persevering. If you are on the outside of that, you don't understand, then a five can really seem distant or unassertive or arrogant, because they usually do know more than most of us. So they can appear to be arrogant. And stingy, meaning retaining energy, feel their energy has to be held. We don't have enough to go around. And stubborn, like all of us, and can be critical because they kind of, sometimes ones and fives can look similar, the criticalness, but fives are very discerning and they want to make sure things make sense. Okay. In a relationship, I say they're very low maintenance because they're not going to be out there with their needs. So you have to kind of intuit what a 5 might need sometimes, because they may not know themselves and they may not know what they're actually feeling. Okay, 1 through 3 for a type 5, if you sense that in yourself, and then for someone else. You're really getting a speed reading course on the Enneagram type. And we have some people in the room who have been studying this for a while. Maybe afterwards we can ask them to make a comment. Okay, number 6. Oh, I love this one. Here you go.
This one's
Give
gonna
us
hurt.
the expression.
This one's going to hurt.
The 6 is called sometimes the guardian, the skeptic, the questioner. In this image, I love this image because, a lot of us are okay with what's on the surface. 6s, no. They're picking up, there's something else going on, they're not telling me. The government is up to something, but I'm going to find out what it is. They're very skeptical, suspicious, and they can really use that well. And they can really collapse behind that as well, too. So 6s are the ones who want to shine a light on what the rest of us would rather ignore. And you can see in the faces there, some of those eyes are terrified, and some of those eyes are fierce. And 6s tend to be one or the other or both in different situations, where it's like fear, almost paranoia. Oh my God, I'm not prepared. The world is a scary place, and what are we going to do? To watch out, I'm coming, and I'm not afraid of nothing. So there's different ways that people can express this. I have a number of 6s in my life. I live with the 6, and it's the greatest thing if you understand. He's watching, you see. But can I speak about you right now? He loves this. Ken's been in every class I've ever done. But 6s are watching, and they're watching for what could go wrong. But he's watching. I can tell Ken watches me to make sure everything is going all right. It's like having this presence. And when 6s are on someone or on an organization or as a city councilor, he's watching out for everybody. Now, on the downside of 6, it can be freaky. I mean, it can be, excuse me, but it can be hyper-vigilant and self-defeating and really testy and defensive and controlling and paranoid. I mean, 6s have a mind that's constantly going ahead, radar, right? Mm-hmm. Beep, 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 there's danger there. It could be happening here. This could be always projecting ahead on what might happen so they can be prepared for anything. So sometimes I hear Ken thinking, but I say, so what are you thinking about? And he tells me all the things that could go wrong, and he's already figured out how to deal with it. Like today, right? Mm-hmm. What was your list of what could go wrong today?
Oh, the sound wouldn't work, the film, I hit the wrong button on the camera, the screen wouldn't work, just, yeah.
We have backups and backups and backups.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
This production, thanks to Ken, we all feel safe and taken care of in here. And it's true, you do feel that with 6s. So there's a 6 on your card, 0 to 3, any sense you have of that. Okay. Number 7, sometimes called, I call it optionist, adventurer, enthusiast, and you can kind of see this person is having a good time. And 7s tend to focus outward quite a bit on all the great things that are possible to experience in life. I don't have time to fit it all in. I have too many countries to go to. I have too many books to read. I have too many people to meet. And there's this great enthusiasm for all the joys of life. And it can be called the epicure at times, And the sin that goes along with it is called in Enneagram language is gluttony. It's like, I cannot get enough. I have a 7 I worked with for years who would say, well, if a little is good, more is better. And it was always that sense of things. So it's really fun. 7s are wonderful to be around until it's not, like all of us. But, I was with the 7 for a number of years. It's like, I can't plan ahead for another fun thing we're going to do, because 7s are always planning the next thing that will be more fun than right now, which means they're not able to be fully here because they're already thinking about the next moment that will be fun. They don't like to be bored. They don't like to be down. They're the ultimate kind of just pick yourself up and go do something fun. So the downside could be what happens if things aren't fun? a 7 can really check out or get very irritated and grumpy because they're not able to pursue they don't want to be limited in any way. So if you're with the 7, you got to know that and learn how to work with it. And sometimes say to the 7, no, which is not easy for the 7. I'm getting giggles over here. Okay. So 7s can be very spontaneous and fun-loving and imaginative and enthusiastic and charming and curious. I mean, who would not want to be around that 24/7? Because then 7s can also be impulsive, undisciplined, restless, narcissistic, meaning what I want matters. How could you not want to enjoy what I'm enjoying? And then can become kind of rebellious, and they just don't want to have limits placed on them. So there's the plus and the minus here for 7. So mark your card 0 to 3 for the 7. Do we have a 7-1 here? You see, when you start giggling, you kind of, that's another way. You can feel
Right, you can either go, or like you start laughing. It's like, oh, yeah. Okay.
All right. Number 8, love this cartoon as well. Challenger, protector, asserter. 8s have a big energy. And Nancy helped me depict this here, where it's kind of an innocence about, they don't know they feel that they're bigger than life. They don't know that their presence can be intimidating to others. They don't know that telling people what to do all the time is a problem. They don't know that taking charge is not something you just do. They don't know that just asserting your needs and wants in the world is just that, why don't you just speak up? So 8s have that sense of just speak up, just do it, just eat up life. It's like, what are we here for? And generally will take a position of control and command in relationships and whatever they do. Often will end up in leadership roles because they can't handle anything else. So there's a big energy from the 8. They don't mind telling people what to do, but they're extremely sensitive about other people, and that if an 8 feels that you're being taken advantage of, or someone is really not being kind to you or not treating you well, they will stand up and defend you. They're extremely strong about that. You want a good 8 to step in sometimes if you're not able to do it yourself. So 8s can be very direct and very authoritative and very loyal and earthy people. It's a real body type of person. They just feel things in their gut. We're talking about the gut types right now. And very protective and often feel very confident about things and decisive. Now, what can happen on the other side is that they can be really insensitive to other people feel about things. It's like, why would I bother with that? Just, they want you to match their strength in a way. Just defend yourself. And I learned being around 8s, working for 8 sometimes. I was CEO, I was a consultant at the firm. It's like, go into a meeting, you better be prepared. We're going to get to the business quickly, and just say what you want, and then we'll get on with it. And so it can be really wonderful because they're very upfront about things. But there can be an insensitivity. It can be really domineering, skeptical. My father, I think, was an 8, and one of his favorite words was BS. Okay, so their response to a lot of things is bullshit, and it doesn't apply to me. Doesn't and can be very controlling and just think about what they need and want. But again, this incredible generosity from the 8 to see that things are taken care of well in life, and I will step in to do that if necessary. Okay, 8, 0 through 3. And last, peacemaker. At the top of the pyramid is the 9. Pyramid meaning, if you see in the symbol, there's a triangle in the middle. And that's an interesting point because in a way they have this global view. They can see all the types. Sometimes people who are 9s identify with all the types and have a hard time finding their type because they are aware of all and have a way to see the broad view that we're all in this together. It's a sense of family, innate sense of harmony. Why destroy the harmony by being in conflict? So they're really good at bringing people together, really good as mediators, understanding different points of view, helping bring people together, good community organizers because they understand all the different sides. It's a wonderful place to be for the 9. And often 9s are really wonderful to be around because they can be very pleasant and just will merge with you. It's like you're talking, they're with you, you feel like you've got your best friend with you. So they have this wonderful capacity to do that and can be very diplomatic and open-minded. For a 9, overdoing that in a relationship, they can become kind of forgetful about themselves because they're thinking about not wanting to confront anyone and wanting to just keep the peace, and they don't know their own needs because that could cause a conflict. If I tell you more of what I need and want, we might have not an understanding, and I will make you feel bad, so they can lose contact with that. They can then become sometimes passive-aggressive because they don't want to be direct with something like the 8, and unassertive. But again, this wonderful blend of knowing all sides of things and understanding how we all fit into this and understanding how harmony is essential to life. 9, 0 through 3. There you go.
Humanity. Done.
Humanity. Need I say more?
Go for it.
Well, the remarkable thing is the Enneagram says really humanity is in these 9 archetypes. You don't have to believe it, but boy, do you begin to see it.
Yeah.
This is the thing about the Enneagram. You don't want to believe these things. You'll get into terrible places if you try to figure out if this is really true or not. What matters is, boy, do you see it and is it useful? Okay, so we were going to go maybe into one type
Yeah.
quickly. Go ahead. What type? You tell them.
Well, I mean, people can tell from my reaction. That's actually when my daughter was flipping through the book, that's when she found that piece of artwork. She's like, just looks right at me, like so the 6. I mean, there's other things I identify with for sure in different ones, but that was the one that's the most like, yeah, that's
Okay.
like I understand that. I feel that.
Yeah, Eileen's been, Eileen's been looking at this on her own and coming to see, when she told me one day, when she thought she saw her type.
Yeah.
And you're just exploring right now.
Yeah.
And in talking, just yesterday and talking about the different options for the format, I said, well, in some of these talks I've been going through this way, just with one type, I don't know what type, and she said, 6?
Yeah.
I said, really? You're willing to do that? Yeah, I'll walk the plank, she said.
Yeah.
So what did
I don't invite people to do things that I won't do. So for me, it's and also it's like I also feel like that's also very 6-ish. Like, so here's me with the flashlight.
Okay.
Everybody's behind me. Yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it. Sure.
Well, tell me, whatever you want to ask, and also if you want to say, because part of what I look for is these images, the words I use in the book, I write them, and it's come out of everything I've absorbed from people through the years. What I've learned from books, from teachers, and mostly from students, and listening to the type speak. And then I try to capture it in an image and in words. But I know that these words or images have a particular impact for people of that type. So tell me what you got from this as a
Well,
6.
I think I'll give you a little vignette with my 18-year-old son, because there's nothing like one's child or the person closest to you to really kind of like show you yourself in a way that's deeply uncomfortable. But he was in the kitchen listening to a song, and I walked in and I said, "Oh, that's Christine McVie," and I'm like, "She died last year." That's like the first thing that comes to my mind. And so he of course imitates my voice. He's like, that song you're listening to? That person's dead. Like, I just want to mention that person's dead. And then he said, it's almost like you haven't been reminding me of my mortality since I was 5 years old. And I was like, oh, but it's true. And I said, so of course, because the way you I'm like, all right, I'm like, you say that like it's a bad thing. And he said, well, it's not necessarily a bad thing. And but it's what it reminds me of is like this idea. It's not just how you're really, trying to relate to other people and trying to build a relationship with other people, but what is the impact you have on the people you love when you think you're doing the right thing for them or
Yes.
yourself, or when you think you're like, I'm just like, he's going to the coast today, and I'm like, did you take the EpiPen? Has he ever used an EpiPen? No. Do we have them? Yes, we do. Right? So so it's like this thing where you can become, how do you keep from really becoming oppressive or like impacting people in a way that you don't intend? Like, how do you observe yourself more to say,
So,
like, okay,
well-
this isn't actually loving in the way that I want to be?
Well, from what you're understanding of being a 6, tell me what you intend. What is it that you're focused
To
on?
keep him safe.
Keep him safe.
So, I mean, so like for me, when I looked at that picture, I mean, it's like every, I'm not a big fan of scary movies. I hate them.
You hate what?
Scary movies.
Scary movies.
Right? But the ones that I do like if people have seen like Poltergeist or like Alien, is there's this very strong female figure who's very mother-like. And it's like, I will take you out if I have to like sit, like that kind of thing. So that's what I know. I'm a little bit scary, like you said. 6s can be scary.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like that thing where I think I'm keeping the people I love safe.
Yes.
Because they're not seeing what I see. I see
Do you hear this?
all
Yes.
this, right? And because they're too busy, like, I don't know, having fun.
What do they do with those heads of theirs? It's one of my 6s
Exactly.
says.
They think it's going to be a nice sunny day, and I'm like, you need an EpiPen because a bee is just waiting for you, kind of thing. Like, what I mean? So that's just, I think I'm keeping the people I love safe. That's
Do
what
you
I
hear,
think.
this is really important information.
Yeah.
Her intention, you can hear it. I want to keep the people I love safe.
Right.
So she focuses primarily, she cannot deviate from that. Now, what you're getting from the people around you who do love you and you do love is what? Like
I love you, and like, kind of thing. And so that's the part that's, and I understand that, I can see it, but it still makes me, it's hard to unclench from that
What's
view.
the word?
Unclench.
Unclench.
So like, I
yes.
see what he's saying, I totally agree with him. I'm being like, this is not exactly helpful, like, can he just enjoy the song? But it's very hard to unclench, because I think when you kind of unclench whatever your operating system is, I mean, it's almost like you're letting your guard down for whatever it is that you
Yeah.
fear.
Yes.
Or whatever it is that you are trying to like access or get in the
Yeah.
world. So it can feel like you're letting go of the wheel, even if it's not driving you to a place you want to go. You know what I mean? It's just.
Oh, say that again. That's
Yeah.
it. That's
Well, I said it just can make you, if you like unclench from whatever your operating system is, it just feels like you're letting go of the wheel, even if you're not going, even if you're not going in a direction you really want to go in.
Did everyone hear that? That's a really remarkable insight. So I'll just underscore that, because each type has that. There's a clenching. Not that these behaviors are good or bad. There's a clenching. I must, in fact, in the book, I start each of the cartoons. I just say here,
Yeah.
like for the 4, just seeking authentic connections, and for the 6, what do we say here?
Just watching out.
Just watching out. It's like, doesn't everybody? Well, I'm just watching out. And everyone says, no, I'm not just watching out. But for a 6, that's all they can do, and there's a clenching around it. The growing is when you say, okay, is it true that the worst is about to happen? You start to do a little, and that's scary.
Yeah.
In a sense, if I let down my guard, well, what will happen? How could I possibly do that? And each type has a place of clenching into their regular behavior, and they can't usually see it. So tell me more about what you're discovering, or what you want to know about 6, or.
Well, I think it's just interesting from the standpoint of like, and I think this is true, because while you were saying this, I was thinking like, so if you unclench whatever your particular type is, it really invites uncertainty. And uncertainty is really uncomfortable. And so, because you have to think like, why do people persist in the behaviors that you're like, that's clearly not good for you, or that's clearly not getting you what you want, or connection, or whatever. And I always feel like, why do people do that? Why do they do that? Because it feels even scarier not to do it. And because otherwise people don't persist in behaviors that don't benefit them somehow, and even if it's not a greater benefit. So so for me, like, that is a major challenge. It's why I hate to fly. I hate flying, because it's all the illusion of control is just gone. And because I recognize, like, there's the idea that I have control over so many different things is ridiculous. And what I used to do for a living, specifically as an emergency doctor, John would know, is that it's like that like vacuum sealed that hypervigilance in. And I think that's the other thing too, is that you end up making choices that really, really kind of vacuum seal certain things in, even more so, even though you don't necessarily know that's what you're doing.
I'm curious, as an emergency room physician, how does being a 6 help with that?
Well, I always say this is like the exact things that brought me to being a doctor in emergency medicine in particular were the exact things that made me had to leave. And so it helped because I was definitely well suited to talking to people like very quickly, like, are you gonna die tonight? You know what I mean? Like trying to figure it out.
Yes, that's
like
what a
like,
6
and
will
so
do.
like I had a very heightened, but it can be crippling because you have to actually get people through very quickly in the emergency department. But I can think of definite instances in my professional life where, because of that hypervigilance and that gut thing, that it actually made a difference for somebody. But so it helped in that regard because it makes you I mean, you're laser focused very quickly on something. Like you're trying to gather
Especially
the
if it's
data.
danger or life-threatening.
Yeah. So it makes you really pay attention in a very particular way, very quickly. So it was very useful to be that kind of person. I think it's just one in that situation, but it's also like anything else. Like, your greatest strength is also your Achilles heel, because then it was very hard to let go. It was very hard to send people home. I would call them like days on end, and if they weren't home, I'm like, oh, they're dead, and they were just at Costco. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just like, you know, I mean, but that's literally what you think, right? You've missed something, right? So it was kind of a torturous.
Well, you mentioned that it sounds like, because we talk about the 6s having self-doubt.
Yeah.
And questions afterwards, and was it second thinking?
Yes.
Is that part of?
Yes, it was brutal. I mean, it is, because you're always thinking, well, what did you miss? What did you miss? And what if that was that one person's, because like somebody will come into the emergency department at 3 o'clock in the morning with a problem that they've had for the past few months, and you're like, why are you here now, today, with me? And if you don't figure it out, maybe nobody will, and maybe they'll die. I mean, it's like that self-doubt, like, because it's very. I used to, my older brother said this to me once, that he never understood why I chose emergency medicine, because he said, he's like, it seemed like you would be better with like relationships with people, and you do develop them in the emergency department, but I said it was like you don't actually, I underestimated the intensity of like patient one night stands, like over and over and over again. It's very, and so in some ways I think I thought I was guarding against that feeling of self-doubt by thinking, okay, like I'm having a set interaction with somebody, as opposed to these, but then you just, wherever you go, there you are.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
Yes. So, given what you see from this point, because you've been observing a lot, I mean, you're a quick study. She's not taking any class or anything, and this is just, she has a good sense of observing self, and she's able to dive into this. What are you seeing right now about the challenge of being a 6 and the growth in it, and where you see you lean towards that more expansive side in being a 6?
It's more like it's thinking more about now about how is it keeping me from being with people I love in a way that I want to be, like in a way, like how is it making them like afraid of me? Do you know what I mean? Like, I fear so many different things. Or how is it impacting how they feel about the world? So I feel like at this stage of life, I'm 53, like I want to be able to show my kids that I may be like in terror the entire time in my brain, but I'm going to get on the plane. I'm going to do the thing. I'm gonna, I'm going to say I don't know what's going to happen, and not necessarily be okay with that. That I feel like that's a ways off. I don't know if I'll ever be okay with that. I just don't know. But that I have to learn how to manage that so that the people around me can experience me in a different way.
Mm-hmm. I've seen, because the Enneagram offers an opportunity to grow or to expand, and we're not always ready for that.
No.
But what I have observed is that when the desire to change, which is not easy at all, especially the older we get, is really activated through love.
Yeah.
That it's for another, we go, oh, I see the impact this has on you. I think I'm fine. Okay, what's the problem?
Right.
But the ones around us say, like you had said, just a little less, Yeah. A question of compatibility is a really good one, and any type can be compatible. Essentially, there's some types that are more challenging for me. I'm a type 1. Okay, so most people are not okay, that I'm not okay with, because they just don't do life right. But I have to understand that. They have to understand that being around me. But there's a sense of certain types might challenge me more. But ultimately, I think it's if you can keep training yourself to understand where they might be coming from, not take someone's behavior as personally. And I found in relationships and couples counseling, for example, there's not a whole lot you can do to help a couple in their relationship, work on the relationship, I will say. If you don't do anything with your relationship with self, just like Eileen was talking about, she's kind of looking at, I care about you, and sometimes I kind of do overkill with that worry. Let me look at that. That is the key to compatibility. Because you're able to see for yourself, I see what I bring to this that's driving you crazy. I'm just being who I am. I'm just taking care of things. Don't you get it? They say, well, I do, but, So you're saying, I have to kind of look at this. So I have found that any type can be compatible with anyone, really. That's why I love this, because I've expanded my repertoire of how many people I can enjoy in life.
Right.
And for a 1, that's a great thing.
Yeah.
Instead of just right and wrong. It's
You need backup.
That's right. And now I've just learned to see, if I see a really good 4 out there, what a beautiful thing, or a good 8, or a good, they're different from me. But you begin to appreciate people as works of art. And the more you know the Enneagram and the developmental side of the Enneagram, you could, like when I had a 5 in therapy for a number of years, this man who was kind of left there by his wife. They came in for couples counseling. She said, I'm out of here, but you stay, and Frank, would you please fix these things for me? And the 5 just kind of sat there because he didn't know how to talk about anything that he felt, But we worked for a couple of years, and you'd start with, you did the therapy question, like, well, how did that feel? And it'd be silence. Long time. And it's not that he was withholding. He didn't have a clue, really. Yeah. But when he began to be more open, and I saw that he was a 5, it's like, oh my God, does my heart open? Because for him to be there, and to be willing to do some introspection, and to be in the presence of another person, and reveal some things that were true for him, I can't express what that was like. So once you know where people's challenge is, and when you see them when you see a 6 be courageous, it's like, wow. Can you put up that slide of the Rebel Heart?
Oh, yeah.
What?
Yeah. 6s are afraid, right?
Oh.
But, okay, look at Eileen's logo and her slogan here.
It's aspirational.
Exactly. I mean, I realize that, and then knowing you're talking about being a 6, like, oh my God, look what this woman is doing. She puts right up front, in public view, her commitment in life. It's not just, here's a bookstore. No, it's called Rebel Heart. And she says, be brave, be true, leave your mark. Does that sound like a paranoid person? I don't think so. So you can appreciate what this woman has to work within herself to have the aspiration and to move towards being brave in the world, because that is not her natural place. Okay. And that's why I say of sixes, makes me cry.
I know. I'm verklempt.
But the appreciation, because each type has this wonderful gift. And when I see people living on their gift side, it is just so moving. And you recognize that for a six, sixes are here to teach us bravery and courage. Why? Because they have to earn it. They did not come in naturally disposed to say, I can handle anything. It's fear, what's going wrong, I don't have enough, I'm unprepared, life is a scary place. That's just kind of the natural thing of that mind. And a six has to find the place that says, there's courage. The Enneagram gives you that also in its teaching about, it's called the virtue, and faith and courage are what are the aspirations for a six. I mean, I live with Ken. Just a quick example, moving here and going through the thought of buying that property that we have was like, I went through total doubt, and I took his place. We can't afford it, we can't do this, we can't move, all the things are not going to work out. And he said, it's going to work out. It's like, how do you know that? Here's a six telling me things are going to work out. What happened to you? But sixes have that place of tremendous courage and faith when they touch into that. So the Enneagram is a great gift in that you're able to see in there. Beyond this personality stuff, see their gift. Let me just read what I close with in each one. And I say, be mindful of their tender spot and see their gift. And to me, this is where I want to leave you at the end of each chapter. Here's the six.
Well, one thing you just said there that I think is really important, because talking about the five, like what it took for him to show up in therapy in the first place. So the thing I would say, because this is what you just said, so I think Edie's here. Edie knows me. She's my great friend. She knows me, so she'll probably be like, yeah, this is so true. I'm a huge accountability, like if you can't be accountable, that's like a kryptonite for me, right? And so I definitely feel like accountability is a major key to compatibility. So whatever, so here, this five is this guy sitting there and it's going to hurt and he can't talk or whatever, but he's showing up. Mm-hmm. He's sitting there.
That's it.
And I feel like, but if you have, this is the part, because I want to be kind. And sometimes, boy, do I have to work at it hard.
It's a huge
hard.
thing.
And like when I was in the emergency department, John knows this. You would have encounters with people that you're like, oh my, you're making it really, really hard for me to try to stay in this space of helping you. And when that would happen, I would think of them. I would actively think of them as a kid, like what they didn't like. What does this, like they couldn't have wanted this, whatever circumstance they're in. They couldn't have wanted to end up here. They didn't want this. So I would try to imagine them as like their childhood self, to try to get through whatever the difficulty was at the moment. But there are some people who I definitely feel like, wow, I'm doing my best, but I'm gonna have to let you go. And I feel like that has to be okay too, mm-hmm. to know, when, it is, so I feel like it's a tool to be kind to others, but it's also to yourself. You have to know when
you know your limits.
Yeah, and when you've done the work that you can do.
You do your work. I've said about kindness, are you kidding? Be kind? It's the hardest thing. But we do our best, but I just say to myself, some people are above my spiritual pay grade. I know I need to be kind to you next life. Can we try that? I don't think I'm going to make it this time around. I just can't. I can't. Okay. But let me close here to say what I close with at each chapter, two things. And one is be mindful of, I call it their tender spot. What is their vulnerable place? What are they most afraid of? What is it that's going on in there? How can you just hold that in your heart. And I say, when you come from your heart, people feel it. They feel seen and not judged. And when people don't feel judged, they relax. And when they relax, they bring forward more of who they are. And as they reveal more of who they are and their humanness, you meet human to human. And you laugh. And that's kindness. And that's really the direction of this book. So I close each chapter. Here's the 6. Being mindful of their tender spot. Deep down, 6s are afraid they will not find the certainty and security they seek. It's a lifelong quest. Reassure them through your actions that you are trustworthy. Support them in honoring their intuition and their own authority, meaning that they know things that they think they don't know. Does that seem?
Yes.
And see their gift. At their best, 6s are the courageous guardians watching out for all of us. And so if you know that about a 6, and you might see them just frantic or worrying, because you don't say to a 6, don't worry. You can see through what, like Eileen was saying, what her intention is. It's to take care of you. I want to watch out for you. I might be not very skillful at it, but please look beyond that lack of skill and see my true intention and my true heart's desire. And each type has their true heart's desire. As ones, we just want to make it a better world. Okay, we want you to just do you'll be much happier. Now, how I go about doing that, you may not like, and I don't like it either. But there's just an innate sense of when things are done well and done right. And why would you not want that? So that's really the purpose of this book, and how I'm using the Enneagram is for an expansion of understanding and compassion. You may not want to do a deep dive into this, but that's why I wrote it too. Even if you don't, you get enough to work with, and it's up to you.
I mean, thanks for doing this, because I definitely feel like ultimately what you do really well through this is the idea of being curious.
Yes.
Like being curious about yourself, being curious about other people, and that allows you, that you end the whole book with this: be present, be real, be kind. Those are hard to be if you're not curious. And so I feel like if we could be in a more curious space,
Yeah.
Especially when you're under stress, when you are the least curious about what's going on, that's actually when you have to get the most curious. So I feel like this gives space to do that.
Yeah, I love people. They're crazy, but we all are.
Yeah.
But if you see through that and go, oh, it was my friend, my primary Enneagram teacher. You really have to be mentored in this for some time to really feel it and get it. And she I met in 1989, and that's how I began to learn. And she's from North Carolina. And in North Carolina, they say, well, bless her heart. Right? Now, it can mean a lot of different things. It can mean like, oh, you're saying a lot by saying it in a nice way. But there's a sincere part of it, which is, oh, I see your good heart, and I honor that. So that's what this is really about. And I'm so grateful to you I couldn't have a better opportunity to bring this forward in this community. I was working with someone who's trying to get me publicity around the country, and I kind of like this. Yeah. My own community, yes.
I'm fairly new to Jacksonville. Is there any sort of an Enneagram group or?
Well, thanks for asking, because it has to be learned in community. You've got to be around 6s to understand 6s, and 1s to be around 1. So the card that you have, a blank card, it's if you're interested in, I don't quite know what's ahead, but if you're interested in keeping up with this and might be interested in anything, we might be maybe a reading group to start or something, to learn more, to explore together. Put your name on the card. I'll put you on my list, and when I figure out what we're going to do, I'm thinking if I do begin to, I haven't been teaching for a few years, but begin to teach again, I'd love to do it here and with our community, and probably maybe start in the fall. And in the meantime, I can give you readings, or you can begin to do your own. If you just take this book and the card I gave you, that's a really good start. But yes, you need to be, so fill out a card, and I'll put it and leave it with me at the back table. And we'll talk more about what might be good for a reading list, because you had told me you like to read.
I wanted to also take the opportunity to thank Jacksonville Public Library
Yes.
for giving us this space. Support your local library. They're the best things. They're the great equalizers of the world. And
it's
so
so
I really appreciate it. And they got it into their
It was in the system. How many of you came from seeing the library announcements? Was anyone from that? Okay.
Yeah, but-
how many of you came through my broadcast? Okay. How many came through Rebel Heart that you saw there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
How many came because you just wandered in today?
That's right.
How
It
many
takes
of
a
you
community.
are from Jacksonville, by the way?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And how many of you from other places? Well, from Applegate?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. And from Medford? Okay. And Ashland?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And
Good.
thanks to everybody for showing up today, because you're obviously curious people, otherwise you wouldn't be here. So I think that's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So thank you for
I
doing
think you say that well. It's really about curiosity, so thank you for that. All right, so if you want me to sign a book, I'll be back there, and Eileen can sell you books. Please support, as you do, her store. Supporting our independent bookstores is essential. And it's a great, knowing that she's around the corner makes me happy to live in Jacksonville.
I'm not that scary.
Thank you so much. Okay.